Hi guys, Lynn, Abrams here from Straight Razor Designs and Straight Razor Place. So I got asked by my friend Anthony Esposito to do one more video on setting a bevel. That seems to be a problem area he's having. So we're going to do that today, and I've chosen a Bismarck 6/8 to go ahead and set the bevel on. And today we're going to be using, this one just simply came in from a customer for sharpening, so we'll get the bevel set on that and then I'll go ahead and sharpen it up later. But today we're going to use one of Naniwa's stones that I've been fiddling around with lately, and this one's called a traditional stone. So the Kosera stones are more magnesium base, which means they can pack a lot more density into the compound that's in there for sharpening, and you get a really nice fast cut. The super stones are a resin base, which means they can put more of the compound in there with that resin-based filler, and that's why they're such great cutters. And so this is more a traditional whetstone, okay? And it's got more of a traditional a whetstone composition. It feels pretty hard, and it feels hard when you're using it. And actually, it feels fairly abrasive, but it's not as abrasive as like a Norton 1000, and so it does a really nice job of setting the bevels. When you're working with it, you might feel a little more resistance, but I've done about 300-400 razors on this thing so far, and I really like it. So we're going to use this today. The one difference about this stone versus the Kosera and the Superstone or Specialty Stone, the new name, that I can tell you right now as well, is that this stone you can soak. The other two, it's not recommended that you soak, but this one I actually soak for 5 or 10 minutes before I brought it out here, so now I'll just spray and go. But the other ones are more spray until they start to puddle up with water, and then you're good to go. So we'll go ahead and we'll set the bevel on this razor with the traditional stone. Now, one thing I'm going to use today is Naniwa's new stone holder. So since Naniwa's quit making the bases that come along in their stones, they've produced this stone holder. And so the stone holder itself is very similar to a Steel-X stone holder. But because the Naniwa stones tend to be, particularly the specialty stones, when you get the thinner ones, they tend to not be quite as thick as even the traditional stone that I have here. The groove where the stone sits in on the Naniwa stone holder is about 1/8 of an inch versus the groove cut into the Steel-X frame, which is about 1/4 of an inch. I don't know if you can see that depth, but that's a lot of stones. So the Naniwa specialty stone, the thinner one, only sits above this a little bit, whereas on their stone, with only 1/8 of an inch, then you've got a lot more stone showing throughout the entire process. So on those thinner stones, that shouldn't be a problem. I normally get 2,500 razors on one before I switch out to a new stone. What I'm more concerned with when I get that stone down to that thinness is that it's going to hit on either side as I'm doing my honing strokes. Okay, so nice product that they came out with, and here we go. The traditional stone. I also have it in the 220. I also have it in a 2000 stone for those of you guys that like to set bevels with a 2000 instead of a 1000 stone. But this is the box that it comes in, if you can see it. I'll try to get a picture of it later, and we'll go from there. Okay? All right. Here we go. This is adjustable just the same as the Steel-X in there, and basically all you want is just a stone to where it's in there firm. You don't want it rocking around a lot, but it needs to be in there flat, no wobbling around, and we'll just spray it up. Now this will absorb a little more water than what the Kosera does and what the specialty stone does. The Kosera now they're calling it a professional stone. So this one's been soaking, so it's pulling up pretty good. A little smudge on top of it is, I had something on my hands from somewhere. So, all right, here we go, 6/8. So what I'm going to do, this razor was sent in by the customer. It looks like he may have tried to hone it. There's a little unevenness where it's a little heavier in the middle of the spine, but that's reflected a little bit into the edge. but it looks like also that there's a minor amount of wear on the heel and the toe. That won't affect the honing. There really isn't much wear on this thing at all, so it's close to being brand new, and we'll hone it up from there. I tend to look at these things every time I put a blade on the stone because I want to make sure that it's flat. I want to see what I'm up against as I'm honing them. I look at thousands and thousands of new ones. I look at thousands and thousands of ones every year that I hone, so anywhere at all kind of sticks out to me. So here we go. We're going to do my circle process. I got the stone sprayed down, and with this process I normally will do 40 circles counterclockwise, 40 circles clockwise, and then I'll follow it up by normally 30 to 50 strokes. So that depends. You can start testing 10 strokes on the X strokes if you want to. And the circles, I use firm pressure, so I'm going to say within 5 to 10 pounds of actual pressure that I'm putting on the razor. It's very key here to keep the razor perfectly flat on the stone, whether you're doing the circles or the X strokes, okay? If you lean down on the razor, you're going to get more on the heel. If you lift up on the razor, you're going to get more on the toe. For me, I find that the best grip actually is to use almost a pinching grip. So I put the razor in between here, and that allows me to keep it flat, and I can put pressure throughout the entire motion regardless of what I do. So it's just pretty much a straight pinching motion. For you, you might find something else that might be a little bit more comfortable. The other thing I do is I angle the scales or the handle up a little bit. Some people I notice when they strop or when they hone, they'll have them down. And to me, that restricts my motion, particularly when I'm doing X strokes. So it works a little bit easier for me to use this pinching grip and do my circles, and then that allows me to rotate the razor as well in my hand and keep that pressure. Now the other thing, and I've said this on previous videos, is it really helps to keep that elbow parallel to the stone or the surface that you're working on, and that will help keep flat as well. So here we go. We're going to do 40 circles both ways, and we're going to follow it up with some X strokes. Always want to watch for the water displacement. So you want to see the water displacing all the way along the edge evenly as you're doing your strokes. And that's easier to see actually as a swarf for the darker stuff, which is metal particles, as that builds up. So as you could tell, I wasn't counting. That's as close to 40 both ways as I get. There are some people, the reason I use 40 is it's easier for me to count 2 sets of 20s. Some people count in 10s, some people count in 8s, some people count in whatever works for them. So that's something you have to decide for yourself. Very, very important with new guys. On the side where you're doing the circles in a clockwise motion, which would be away from you, I'm noticing on the razors that I get in where people have tried to hone them, that people for some reason are putting a lot more pressure towards the spine of the razor on that side. That creates all kinds of problems. It creates a little bit more wear on the spine itself, and it creates less wear on your bevel, and in some cases you're almost ending up with a separate bevel or 2 bevels into that razor from when you started, and it'll be totally different from the other side. So just a point of something to keep track of. All right, and so now I'm going to do some X strokes. Now I don't do big X strokes. I've got a 3-inch stone. Some guys will use, come all the way off the stone to the toe of the razor. I've never found the need to do that. I don't know if you can hear it, but this stone is definitely has more resistance feeling, a more resistant feeling, I think, than the professional stone or the Cosera. But it still does a heck of a job, and it's not like it's peeling off a lot of metal either, although it is peeling off a lot of metal, but you really don't see that wear as you go through one of these razors. And it's definitely obviously not as soft feeling as like a 1000 specialty stone or super stone would be. If at any time when you're doing your strokes or whatever, if you push the water off the stone, you want to give another spray, no problem in doing that. The only thing I really try not to do is let the stone go totally dry. All right, now I'm going to wipe it off. I'm going to give it a little test. I do a thumb pad test, and again, there are lots of different ways to test, but for me, the thumb pad really tells it all. I want this razor to feel so sharp that if I put pressure on it, it feels like it's going to split my finger open, it's going to cut me. You can tell that feeling once you get used to it pretty readily. The other thing is you want it to be sticky or grabby. So with the razor itself, I just rest my thumb pad on the blade, okay? I don't take it up and down to feel it, because then you will cut your finger. And what I'm trying to do is take it over to the side to see if it's just going to run off or if it's going to feel like it's pulling and it wants to dig in and stick. And so this one really has a nice sticky feeling right now. But again, I mean, this razor was in pretty good shape, so you would expect it to be a quicker job than you would one that's in really bad shape. It's still not quite where I want it, and so I'm gonna do probably another more 20, maybe 20, 25 more X strokes and test it again. I try not to do a second set of circles. That moves a lot of metal, so unless the razor's really in tough shape or it's already got a couple of bevels in it or it's got a lot of uneven wear, I'll just continue to do X strokes until I get it, unless I think it's just not going to be close at all. If I have a razor that I think is going to take me 2 or 3 sets of the circles, I'm going to go ahead and put some electrician's tape over the spine so that I protect the wear there. Okay? So let's go back to some more X strokes, see if we can't get this right where we want it. Another thing, being as we're doing this, is that every razor is a different animal that you're using. And so this particular one, as you'll see, because it's a Dovo Bismarck, it's got a thumb notch. So for some people, a thumb notch can actually be problematic. And so that may affect how you grip the razor or how it feels in your hand as you're doing strokes or circles and turning it. Okay? So on these types of razors, I always try to hold more towards the flat part at the end of the thumb notch, because that gives me a little bit more control in turning the razor back and forth or in changing directions. And so that's going to vary. But it's funny, the things that will come to your attention as you're honing these razors. Sometimes just the angle that the razor itself may be set into that handle, the cant may be off just a little bit. And so you'll feel that. And again, the exercise is always going to be to keep both the spine and the edge of the razor flat at the same time. The object of setting a bevel is for both sides of the razor, of the bevel itself, to come together flat or evenly until they form a perfect edge. That's really what it's all about. If you've got an old junker of a razor that's got wavy wear into the top part of the bevel, you're not going to put that metal back on, so you don't worry as much about the top part of the bevel as you do making sure that that edge comes together perfectly. And then if you do that, you'll find that you'll have better bevels and probably easier to set them, or easier to get them to where you want them before you move on. The bevel setting is 90% of the work when you're honing razors. If If you get the bevel set right, the rest of the process should really just fall into place. And that's why most of the people who hone and most of the information that you read will tell you that the emphasis is always going to be on making sure that bevel is perfect. If you need to look under a microscope to make sure there's no double bevels and make sure you got any microchips or any of that kind of stuff out of there, go ahead and do that. And sometimes it helps if you have a problem razor to do that. But most of the time, a simple thumb test, and it needs to be sharp all the way up and down the razor, will take care of that. And this is pretty good, maybe needs a little bit more on the toe. You can almost hear how much harder that stone feels. It's just a different hardness of a sound than what the other Naniwas are. And that one is feeling pretty good all the way up and down. Sometimes some guys will go ahead and try to shave some of the hair off their arm with a 1K as well. And as long as it cuts the hair in the arm, the bevel is set. So as you can tell, that's shaving hair pretty easily. So we're going to say the bevel's set on that one. And there you have it. We're ready to move on to, if I stay with the Naniwas, which I normally will do, up to the 5,000 stone to go ahead and finish out the circle process, and then we're done. So here we go. Anthony, I hope this helps you. Maybe it's giving you a different angle, or maybe a couple more suggestions that you weren't trying. Guys, if you have any questions, always you can call me. You can send me PMs, whether it be on Straight Razor Play, Straight Razor Designs, Facebook, wherever, and I'll always try to help you out any way I can. So we'll see you out there, and have fun. Thanks.